Good morning, everyone. This is Britt Simon. Saturday morning here in Northern California, and I thought I'd take a few minutes to answer some questions, but also to talk about the removal of the Tier 4 prioritization scheme that happened yesterday. So a few of you would have watched my video interview with Curtis Morrison, where I talked to Curtis about his plans to file a lawsuit against the Tier 4 prioritization of DV lottery cases. And lo and behold, the next day, the government removed the prioritization scheme in its entirety. Did they do that because because they were concerned about being sued? Possibly, I don't know. There's, as I mentioned in my interview with Curtis, I'd also spoken to Jesse Bless a couple of months ago, and I know that AILA were working behind the scenes to try and get the government to see sense that they should remove the Tier 4 prioritization for DV lottery, and frankly remove the whole scheme. But only a couple of days ago, there was a lawsuit upholding the prioritization scheme in other cases. So I don't know. The reality is we don't know what got the government to remove the prioritization scheme. But I'm pleased, I have to say. I had recorded, but hadn't published yet, a video talking about my recommendation or feelings about Curtis's new lawsuit. It's almost moot now. It doesn't matter what I thought or what I was going to say. But what I was going to say was that I wanted the lawsuit. I was very mixed feelings about it. I wanted the lawsuit. I thought the lawsuit was going to be useful, but I didn't, frankly, want many people to join the lawsuit because it wasn't the complete answer. And if you watched my video interview with Curtis, the main point that I think I established pretty well was that anyone who participated in that lawsuit wouldn't automatically be put into a different lawsuit that Curtis may need to file later, and then someone could pay twice. And I thought that was kind of unfair. So I would have been happy for the lawsuit to go ahead because it attacked the Tier 4, but I would have been concerned for people, frankly, in that lawsuit, and I didn't really want people to sign up, particularly with high case numbers and that sort of thing. I wouldn't want them to sign up because the tiered prioritization scheme will, that being removed, that will probably help some people, but it wouldn't necessarily help people with high case numbers. So let's talk about that. Is it true about prioritization? Yes, it's true. That has been removed. So the government have removed the whole prioritization scheme, and what they've said is it's up to the local embassies now to decide, how they prioritize cases, how much scheduling capacity they've got. The embassies don't have to answer to the government's perspective in terms of putting DV cases in the last category. That, to be honest, is just normal. Some people have raised the question of, oh yeah, but you can't celebrate too soon because now the embassies get to apply that prioritization. Well, they always did, right? So that's just a non-point. Don't worry about that point. The fact that embassies make the decision, that has always been the case. Okay, this is just a return to normal. Now, there are some problems still, and this is what I was saying to Curtis. There are problems. So, firstly, in regard to the embassies, this prioritization scheme won't reopen the embassies that are currently closed. It won't force them to take scheduled cases from other countries and other regions. It doesn't fix any of those problems, right? And those are also problems. The tiered 4 prioritization scheme was a problem for sure, but it was one of several problems that are affecting DV 2022. So DV 2022 is not all of a sudden, oh, it's wonderful, everything's going to be fine. If you think that, you're not paying attention. Why am I saying that? Well, some of the embassies have got problems still. Okay, that's one thing. Also, we've lost the first 3 months, almost entirely lost the first 3 months of the year. There's been almost no interviews scheduled in October, November, December. Very low numbers, much lower than in a normal year. The first 3 months of any year, itchy nose. The first 3 months of any year is normally a quieter time, but still we've lost a lot of time. And it's not my impression that there are many cases getting documentarily qualified. So we've lost time in terms of scheduling. We've also lost time in terms of processing. Okay, I think there are problems still at KCC. Now, for some of you that have watched my recent videos, you may have heard me speculate, and this is only speculation, that that because KCC are funded by the visa processing fees, the $330, they're funded. They're funded in that way. There's no budgetary cost of KCC to the government. It's entirely funded through the processing fees, right? And so if KCC are in a position where the prioritization scheme means that very few cases are going to get interviewed in DV 2022, it wouldn't have surprised me if if their budget was reduced. Okay, if you're running a department for nothing, for free, and you're staffing that entirely with contract staff, right? Almost entirely with contract staff. You're doing that because you want to be able to increase or decrease the capacity of the team based on the amount of money coming in from the interviews themselves, right? You understanding what I'm saying? So if they saw that the amount of interviews was going to be less because of the prioritization scheme, they may have reduced the amount of capacity that they had. And we know there's a capacity problem at KCC because they're not even answering the bloody phones right now, right? The staff that should be answering the phones and taking phone calls are either so fed up because of abusive phone calls, which is a possibility, frankly, or those people are spending time instead in processing cases. Okay, so I think it's probably the latter because the staff at KCC, they can hang up on you if you're abusive. They'll just hang up on you, and I wouldn't blame them at all. So, to me, it's like, okay, they must have less staff working, so therefore they're not even answering the phones. And in the same way, they shifted workers from DV 2022 processing to process additional DV 2021 cases in May, June, July, August, September. And we saw evidence of that. We've seen two bits of evidence. Number one, we got more DV 2021 cases through because of the lawsuits. And number two, we know that there was a big gap in processing after around about May 20th. There's a big gap in processing. So there is clear evidence that there was some sort of turning off of work for DV 2022 cases. It was switched to DV 2021. And so the management team at KCC have obviously made at least a couple of deliberate decisions, not answering the phone and switching resources based on not having enough resources to do all of these things, right? They didn't have enough resources to answer the phones and process DV 2022 cases. So they chose to prioritize, right? So the upshot of that is, by removing this prioritization scheme, it may increase the number of interviews. I hope so. Therefore, increasing the number of the expected revenue for KCC, therefore increasing the ability of them adding more contract staff, right? That's my hope. So it will sort of flow through, I believe. It will flow through to faster processing at KCC, but I don't expect that to happen overnight. It's not going to be a simple switch, right? Many of you think in very simple black and white, scenarios. It's not like that. things are not sort of black and white like that. It takes time for things to change. And even in some of the embassies, we may see some of the embassies reluctant to, now they've been given a taste of what it's like, let's say, to schedule some cases over others. There'll be some embassies that will continue to behave that way. There will be, because they sort of get into a certain mode. They've been told for several months these other cases are priority. Now they're going to be told the priorities are not like that, and it will take some time for their mindset, frankly, to change. But I expect that to resolve after a month, maybe 2 months. So the government removing the prioritization scheme is good news. I'm thrilled about it. I'm pleased we don't have to have that lawsuit. And I think that's better for everyone. But are we out of the woods yet? No, we're not. We need things to get going fast, and this doesn't fix things overnight. And of course, it may not even fix things for January interviews, right? Because it's difficult on the 20th. Well, the announcement was made yesterday on the 19th. It's difficult for them to sort of turn on a dime and suddenly get more capacity from the embassies. They might do that, but I think that's wishful thinking, frankly. Okay, so I've explained what the positive impacts of Tier 4 removal are, right? I think. Hopefully you understand that. Here we go. DQ'd September. I was born in Saudi Arabia, but Egyptian nationality. Interviewed to be in Cairo. Egyptian. No, you haven't done anything wrong. You were born in Saudi Arabia. You've got an Asia region case. You'll be interviewed in Cairo. No problem. Plenty of people are interviewed in Cairo. Doesn't make any difference. No problem at all there. Sent your DS-260 for July and documents in August. Still didn't get documentarily qualified or even received anything from KCC. Your case number is 49. I guess that's AF 49,000. You've added extra X's, but you're going to have to wait, right? You're going to have to wait for some time. Your DS-260 won't have been processed yet because they're not processing. They're starting to move now on to late May and early June submitted cases, but not many. And your case number is high, and you'll be in a backlog. So it's not important for you to be DQ'd quickly. You have to wait for your case number anyway. So be patient. There's no need for you to worry. There's no need for you to be contacting KCC and wasting their time. You just need to be patient. Ram, a few days before you predicted prioritization may go off any time. How did you predict? I didn't predict that it may go off at any time. I argued with Curtis a little bit that it could be removed by the government. It was possible. I didn't predict it. I think that would be a bit disingenuous to say I predicted this to happen. I absolutely didn't predict it. I just hypothesized that it could happen. I also made the case with Curtis that if his lawsuit was successful in removing the prioritization, that we wouldn't be out of the woods. So now we've got the prioritization removed, but we're not out of the woods. So thanks for your belief in me, Ram, but I don't want to take credit about that. Curtis did ping me after the removal and said he thinks that the government are watching my YouTube channel and the reason he said that was because in the interview with me, he revealed his strategy, which I thought was quite cool in a way. I was a bit worried about it, but it was also cool. He was going for summary judgment based on the position that Judge Mehta had already ruled on for DV 2021. In other words, it's like government really don't have a leg to stand on this particular point because it's already been ruled on, right? And there's a precedent in law. And so Curtis's strategy was to go straight for the judgment. He didn't want a lot of argument. He was going to go for summary judgment straight away. Now, the government didn't have to agree with that strategy, but nevertheless, the point was made. And once I think, they were being sued, it may well have contributed to their decision to remove it. Having said that, it was very quick. It was like from one day to the next. And I haven't seen the government react so quickly. I think the decision might have been made before Curtis's announcement of his lawsuit, and most certainly, before the my video on the subject. So, so again, don't want to claim credit, and I think Curtis was sort of partially joking about the government watching my YouTube channel. But if you are watching government, you suck. and you're going to continue to lose every single time you go into court because you suck and you're defending bad policies. So stop defending bad policies and you'll stop having your asses kicked. Anyway, so Ashraf. Oh, and by the way, I'm going for my citizenship right now. So, and if you're slowing it down, Mr. Government Lawyer, then screw you. So, I wouldn't put it past them, to be honest. Can you share a statistics on how many green cards are available DV 2021 to win for each country? My second question is why it's different from country to another. Right. Well, your second question, let me answer that. It's not different from one country to another. And your first question is wrong. There's no allocation of visas per country. What you really seem to be asking is, why does this country get a lot of winners and this country gets very few winners, right? And sometimes the countries are right next door to each other or in the same region. Well, the answer is because not many people from this country have entered the lottery, and a lot of people from this country entered the lottery. And so this country with a lot of entries gets a lot of winners, and this country with very few entries gets very few winners. Because the chances of winning between the two countries, all countries within a region, is the same, and there is no allocation of visas per country. Okay, so I think your question is just a little bit wrong, or your understanding is a little bit wrong. Will the information I filed affect me? I don't know what information you filed. I'm sorry. Questions fly by in the screen. I don't know what question you asked. I just sort of scrolled up. I can't see the question. You'll have to ask again and make it clear. Okay. Very next question. My wife and I filled DS260 of DV 2021 and sent documents without receiving an email to attach documents. Now we are not together. We're not legally divorced. And you applied as single for DV 2023. So you've given them evidence that you were married in DV 2021, which they have on file. You obviously were married. You obviously are married. You're not divorced, right? And then you lied when you entered as single in DV 2023. And you're asking, will it affect you? Of course it will bloody affect you because you lied. You know you did. Why are you asking me? You know you lied. You know what the rules are. And you've given them the evidence that you lied. So no, if you get selected for DV 2023, don't proceed. You're guaranteed to be disqualified because you lied. People drive me nuts sometimes. Come on, Minulu. Use your common sense. You didn't need to even ask me that question. You know you lied, right? And if you lied, frankly, I don't know what to say. Martin, lawsuit to extend the processing for DV 2021 due to the DV 2021 law cause delays, maybe talking about options. Yeah. So Martin, this is a good point. At some point, and this is what I was saying to Curtis the other day, I think we're going to need another lawsuit later on in the process to reserve visas for DV 2022 in the same way that they were reserved for DV 2020 and DV 2021. I think we're going to need that, right? Now, people are going to get up in arms. No more lawsuits. No more lawsuits. Well, the lawsuits are working, all right? So shut up, all you people who are saying no more lawsuits. I'm not in the mood for it this morning. The lawsuits actually have worked so many times. It's just not even funny to say. I mean, it's just stupid, frankly, to say that lawsuits don't work. They didn't work for your individual case. Yeah, I get that. I get the frustration. You're a plaintiff. You didn't get what you wanted. I understand for you they didn't work, but for everybody, of course they've worked. We've seen the evidence of that time and time again. So one of the impacts that Martin is referring to here is that the lawsuits in DV 2021 took away processing from DV 2022. Now, that will be one of the points, one of the evidence points that the lawsuit in DV 2022 that will probably happen will have to point at and say, well, you didn't process all the cases, you took the resources. They had two decisions. They could either have increased resources and done all of the work they were supposed to do, or they could have not increased resources and switched the resources, which is what I believe they did. If we can prove that, if we can show that that's what they did, then there's evidence there that they wasted 3 or 4 months' time of processing for DV 2022. And what they should have done is increase the resources, okay? So that's going to be one of the things that they will be held liable for later on. You know, if there are lawsuits, which I suspect there will be, that will be some evidence that Curtis and Charles Cook and all of those lawyers are going to be looking for, because it's clear that they did that, right? It's obvious. So yeah, we'll see. Now, whether it will extend the processing, as you're putting it, or whether it will reserve visas, I think the reservation is what it will be. And if it goes in front of Judge Mehta, as we've seen, he doesn't reserve visas in high numbers. He doesn't want to give people additional chances. He did this policy in DV 2020 and in 2021. So he'll do the same thing in 2022. In other words, if you participate in a lawsuit, you should know, and it should be obvious to you, that you know, that you're not guaranteed any success in the lawsuit. You have to understand that. If you don't understand that, and if you're going to whine about it like children later, then don't participate in the lawsuit. You can't buy your way into a visa, right? The lawsuits help you, and they've helped lots of people, but they can't guarantee a win. Doesn't matter how good the arguments are. Doesn't matter how good the lawyers are. The lawyers don't control the judge. You're not giving your money to Judge Mehta or any other judge. You're not giving your money to the embassy. You're paying a lawyer to argue for you, and the arguing is done, and therefore the fee is due. But you're not guaranteeing a visa. And honestly, some of you people, you know, that have been frustrated and said, well, I didn't get my visa, therefore all the lawsuits are crap. You know, you're behaving like children. And I say that as a father of 4 children and a grandfather to 6. I know how children behave, and I can see the behavior. It's like that. You've got to understand, you've got to be an adult in this, and you've got to say, okay, what is my potential risk? What is my chance in a lawsuit? Does it improve things for me? Does it increase my chances? Because it doesn't guarantee me the visa. Please understand that. Nobody's ever promised you that you would be guaranteed a visa through a lawsuit. Nobody has ever promised you that. Well, I hope nobody ever has. I mean, certainly none of the lawyers I would deal with. I hope no other lawyers are brazen enough to say that. You know, I wouldn't agree with that at all. Okay, DV 2022, 14K. Cairo, still nothing for document request or anything. What do you think? What do I think? I think they were delayed, and I think everybody is going to be delayed. There's plenty of collected evidence to say, by the way, that a lot of people submitted their forms in early May. A large volume. A lot of people went ahead and did that quickly this year. That's usually the case, but I think it might have been more than usual this year. But we've got that evidence. And so that means that there's a large volume in May. Once they get through May and they're into June and they're onto July in terms of DS-260 submission, hopefully things can get a little bit faster. But of course, there's then the backlog of documents that they have to go through, and that has to be done through case number order. Okay, so we'll see. Rosie, OC 1100, submitted 8th of July, sent documents October, no reply. Based in London. Have I shot myself in the foot for submitting the 260 in July, and should I send documents again? You haven't shot yourself in the foot. Your case isn't current yet. It probably will be, probably around about, let's say, you know, February or March or something. February's too soon. No, it's going to be March or April. probably about that time, right? So you haven't shot yourself in the foot because you're not even current yet. And even if you get current and you're not documentarily qualified by that time, you'll be processed later. You'll be interviewed later. What you should really be concerned about is not so much the DS260 and getting DQ'd. Everybody's very concerned about getting DQ'd, and being DQ'd early is important. It's good. But it's not the end of the world if you don't get DQ'd like really early. So you haven't shot yourself in the foot. Should you send your documents again? No need to at the moment. As long as you're comfortable that you attached all your documents correctly, you followed the instructions, you put the subject line as your case number, your full case number, not how you've written it there, but the one with the leading zeros, right? Should have, I think, 4 leading zeros in front of the 11. Your full case number in the subject line, and only the case number in the subject line, nothing else, right? As long as you did all of that, then they will get to you. It's just that they've not got to you yet. Okay, so but relax, you haven't screwed anything up. Okay, Yummy Plus, AF 11,000. Send documents. Oh, send your documents. Send your bloody documents. Everyone can send their documents. There's no harm. There's no harm in sending your documents, right? There's no harm. It might help. I'm not saying it will help. I'm not saying it guarantees you to be DQ'd earlier. I'm saying it might help. Okay. And there's no harm to it. So send your documents, right? Just send your documents. There's instructions on my blog about how you send the documents. At what case numbers are they treating for DV 2022? Well, you can read the visa bulletin. There you go. Do that. Read the visa bulletin. Do you think case number EU 17K will have a chance to get interviewed? I don't know. You submitted 9th of June. That's good. When did you send documents? Okay. That's kind of important. But 17K, you're not going to be current for 2 or 3 months. So wait and see. How will the 9,095 visas be divided? I don't know. I don't know. Now, so I when I say I don't know, I try and say things that I'm sure of. If I'm not sure, if I'm speculating, I'm going to tell you I'm speculating, right? If I'm sure, I don't sort of add any caveats about that. But these answers about the 9,095, I tend to say I don't know, partly because I don't want to answer the question. And because it could go differently to how I assume. Here's how I assume it will go, though. Okay, so this is going to be the answer you're expecting, but of course, I could get this wrong. This could be incorrect, and and no doubt some smart ass in 6 months' time will tell me I'm wrong or whatever. But who cares? I don't care. So, so here's what I assume will happen then. And this, I should do this for you, Paras. So there are around about 7,000 cases that are in ready status at the embassies. Ready status means that they've been scheduled for an interview in DV 2020. We're talking about DV 2020, right? So there are about 7,000 cases. Now, will all of those 7,000 cases try and get their interviews? No, they won't, right? But let's say some number of them want their interviews, and I say they won't try and get their interviews because many of those ready cases were ready earlier in the year and they've moved on in life by now. They got married, they got a job, they bought a house. They don't want to emigrate now. So times will have changed for some of those people, and so they won't all process. But those 7,000 cases have a natural advantage because they're already at the embassies. So they're documentarily qualified. Obviously, they were scheduled, and some of them might even have had interviews because although they're marked as ready, that could just mean that the embassy didn't update their SIAC case. So those cases will have kind of the luckiest chance, right? They're going to be the most obvious group to get satisfied. Then there are going to be a bunch of cases at KCC that were already documentarily qualified. Actually, sorry, there's another group. There's another group of people that will get sort of satisfied first. That's DV 2020 people who had an interview, but they were on AP. If that AP has now been cleared up, then those people should get, pretty good priority first. Also, people who are affected by the Muslim ban in DV 2020, there's not many of them in DV 2020, but some people would have been interviewed up until, let's say, March of 2020, before March of 2020, and refused through the Muslim ban. Some of those people will also be able to get their cases going. Okay, so after the 7,000 people, or whatever number of those, let's say 5,000 or 4,000, choose to go, then there's going to be some Muslim ban people and some people who are on AP, but that AP finally got resolved. Those people are all going to go first, in my opinion. And then there'll be some additional visas, and those will probably go to people who are already documentarily qualified. And so if you are not documentarily qualified in DV 2020, then you've got less chance of getting one of those 9,095 visas, even if your case number is low, because all cases were current. So documentarily qualified date in that particular scenario is what's most important. Okay, and I think there's probably more than enough DQ cases to take all the remainder visas. And so I don't think anybody who's not documentarily qualified will get much chance. There will be a few people who are working with very small embassies that might be able to get their case pulled through quickly because the embassy helps them. But it won't be very many of those. Okay, that's the explanation. Yeah, they're not scheduling many interviews. They haven't scheduled almost none in October, if probably none. Same in November. December was shabby, not very good. And we're about to see, hopefully, 2NLs being released in the next few days for January interviews, but I don't think it'll be a huge number for January either. So we'll see. You're from Albania, DV 2022, 11K, submitted 26th of May. I sent documents without the email from KCC, not received email confirmation. It's processed or not. I don't know whether it's processed or not, but be patient. Your case number isn't current yet. And, hopefully you'll hear over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Fingers crossed. Hi, Grizzly Mob. How are you? You understanding why the government won't fund KCC? Oh, they don't. That was part of the original. It was part of the original deal. This was supposed to be. There's aspects. There's aspects of government that are not funded by government, which is it's interesting because there's this thing called the government shutdowns that goes on. There's budgetary control of the government all the time, and during times when they shut down the government, they shut down certain departments. But there's other departments that are able to continue going, KCC being one of them. And that's because they're funded by the revenue of the visa fee. We're all paying fees when we get for the interviews, right? What do you think that's paying for? It's paying for that service. It's paying for, for that processing. So the funding method is not through government funding. And why don't they fund KCC? Well, because that's how it was agreed that it would be run. Again, if you're paying attention now to how the current budgetary laws are going through, when they implement a bunch of laws, they want to show what's the cost of that. And there's an argument about the cost all the time, right? Now, people don't mind immigration if it doesn't cost anything. So when the DV lottery was introduced some 30 years ago, they said, here you go, you can have a program. It won't cost us anything because we'll set up this department. We'll take the money from the fees. It won't cost us a penny, guys. And so that's how they got it approved. That's one of the things. It won't cost us anything. It'll be funded by the fees, but we'll get new immigrants to the country and we increase the diversity. That's all positive things. Immigrants are a good thing for America. It's important. Immigration is important for America. And the diversity was, an important thing. So we didn't just get British people, or we didn't just get Chinese people or Indian people or whatever. That we had diversity, people from different countries, and that was a good thing for America too. So anyway, that was how it was set up, Grizzly Mob, and you can't just change the rules later on. That's not how government works. So, Olivier, I've followed your advice and sent documents without receiving DR email, but 6 weeks later I received a DR email instead of DQ. What does it mean I didn't receive my documents? No, it doesn't mean that. What it means is that they've processed. You'll get the DR email when your DS260 is processed, right? So it's a good thing. It means that they've processed your DS260. Olivier, if you can, put the date that you submitted your DS260 in the chat, if you could. I'd like to see that, because that's what it means. And what date did you get that DR email? But there's no problem with that. It doesn't mean they haven't got your documents. And the documents can be processed quite quickly if you've got a simple case. So you might get DQ pretty quickly after that. I'm winner of DV 2021. Afghanistan, no situation. Yep, there's no embassy. Some people went to Pakistan, got a visa before 30th September. If I go to Pakistan after 30th September, what do you mean after 30th September? 30th September next year? No, there's no chance if you do it next year. But now, yeah, you could do that. If you've got relatives, you've got an address in Pakistan, and if you can move your family, I see a picture of a beautiful daughter there. If you can move your family to Pakistan and try and get an interview at Islamabad, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Give the address to KCC, change the address on your DS260, and ask them to schedule you in Pakistan. So yeah, do that. It's a good thing to do. But please, God, just be safe when you're traveling, right? Please make sure you can be safe. Okay. DQ'd in good luck, 2021, 6 something. When you give the number like that, I'm not sure what the number is. Do you mean 60,000? You can't do. You mean 6,000, I should imagine. Chances? I don't know. I don't know. How can I guess that? I don't know the date you got DQ'd. There's no way I can guess that. Okay, you just have to wait and see. Jamshid, hi Simon. Is there a chance? This is a good question. Can a good luck plaintiff do AOS at any point in the future? If this is an interesting one, because the lawsuit wasn't primarily focused on consular processing, but AOS cases were not affected by the proclamations, right? So whilst it wasn't actually sort of specified in the lawsuits, technically it might be possible to adjust status. The basis upon which you could adjust status, a visa being available, is going to be possible, right? But could you adjust status? I would say technically, you might. I personally wouldn't advise you to try. Why are you going to gamble on that? What's going to happen is the process in consular processing is different to adjustment of status. In consular processing, when they schedule your interview, they reserve a visa for you, right? And even though your interview won't be for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, there is a visa allocated to your case when they schedule you for an interview. So you've got some confidence that that's going to happen. With adjustment of status, first of all, it takes longer. It can take months, and that's not a wise idea when there's a limited number of DV visas available. And secondly, they don't reserve a visa for you until the day of the interview. You understand the difference? What will happen is you'll try and adjust status. It will go slowly, even if you I'm assuming that it's technically possible. It may not even be technically possible, but I think it would be unwise, because you'll go through an adjustment of status process, which will be slower than the other people going through consular processing. And you won't have a reserved visa, whereas all the people doing consular processing do. So it would be an unwise choice, in my opinion. I wouldn't do it personally. If you want to try, and if you want to gamble your chances on that, that's up to you. But I think it would be a bad gamble to make. I hope that's clear, Jamshed. Clan Chief, good name. DV 2022 EU 18K DR on August 13th, sent 16th after 12 weeks KCC that my docs have not been received. Yeah, they send this stupid email saying they haven't received the documents, and some people have not sent the documents, I'm sure, right? There are some cases where people have just screwed up the document thing. They haven't attached the documents, or they didn't attach all of the documents, or they attached the documents, but the mail size was too big. It was over 25 meg. And so the mail server at some point rejects it. So be very careful about that. Make sure that you haven't made any of those mistakes. Also, make sure that when you send the documents, you use the case number, the complete case number. EU 000 18,000, the whole thing. 2022 EU 000. Those leading zeros are important. And that should be in the subject line of the email. Nothing else should be there. If you did all that, then you can just wait a little bit, wait for a few more weeks and see if they find your documents. They might do. But I should imagine, given the dates you're saying there, August 16th, I should imagine you probably made a mistake on sending the documents. Check your documents, Clan Chief. Okay. When will Good Luck Biden case final judgment be? It's not going to be until April of next year at the earliest. We already know the briefing schedule, the schedule of various points in the case. So the earliest it could be is April of next year. It can be the government have filed a motion for summary judgment in the case, trying to end the case, trying to end it early. I don't think they'll win on that, but they are trying to just end the case, right? But other than that, it's not going to be until April of next year at the earliest. Why going to see more interviews in the coming months of 2022? Why? Well, Tier 4 prioritization should make it a little bit faster. If bill passed in the Senate and signed by the president, what benefits will be for 2020 and 2021? Good question. So about the bill was passed through the House the other day. It's not gone through the Senate, so it's not law yet. So for those of you celebrating, yes, we can celebrate that it went through the House. That's one of the things that had to happen, but it's got to go through the Senate, and the Senate are much less likely to vote for it than the House were. If you look at the vote split, there's not a single Republican in the House that voted for the measure, right? So all of the Republicans, there's 50 of them, are likely to vote against it. So if any of the Democrats defect and go to the other side, kind of thing, then it won't pass. And they might end up negotiating some of the text out of the bill before it gets passed. So we'll see. If, however, it passed with the Meng amendments in, which are currently still in there at the moment, the effect would be to reclaim the unused visas from DV 2020 and DV 2021. So it doesn't mean everybody would be happy, although in DV 2020 in particular, probably most people would be happy because there's probably less people who want the visas than there are visas in DV 2020 if we were allowed to go to the full 55,000. In DV 2021, it would still result in some cutoffs, but it would mean that there would be some later date when we could process those visas. I don't know when, I don't know who, I don't know any of the details, and none of that is guaranteed until the Senate passes the bill with that text in it and the president signs it into law. Okay, so you have to wait and see, but it could be beneficial, but it's not there yet. Okay. I'm missing a document military record and I'm not going to get until January. Will it affect my case if I send an explanation letter with documents? You can try that. Try and see what happens. It won't get you disqualified. It just might mean that they won't schedule you until you provide that document. What should we write for permanent US address in DS260 many months earlier? If we don't have anyone in the US, can we change it later? You can choose any address in the USA, but you must be very careful to change it later because that address is where your green card is going to be sent. And if they send the green card to an address that you gave them and it's accurate, and you therefore have to get it replaced because it went somewhere and you lost it, right? It will cost you $500 per green card to get replacements. $550, I think it is, $500. So it's not cheap. So you can put an address there now. I mean, it's much better. Frankly, everybody knows someone who lives in America, right? You might know someone who knows someone, but you can probably find an address, right? But if you have to, just choose any address and then change it later, change it at the interview. Your very last time that you can change it is at the port of entry. But, you know, that once you've entered the USA, your green card is going to be sent to that address that you've given. Even if you change it online, it's not going to help you at that point. OC310, Peter, do you, if there's already some interviews scheduled for Oceania region, do I know? I don't know the specifics of who's scheduled in which embassies, etc. I don't know. We don't have that data. They said process of an interview will start next month. Interesting. I'm just wondering if you happen to know some people. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, clearly there's, you know, the expectation is that there is going to be, you know, some interviews later. But why they just chose, you know, there's 12 months in the year and they've chosen to waste 3 of those months. You know, frustrating. But EU CN 10,000, big number. It's not a big number. No, you see, you're completely wrong, Irvis. You don't know what you're talking about. You're saying the max case number that got an interview in your country was 4,600. That's got nothing to do with, you know, with your case number. Your case number is not a big number. It's got nothing to do with your country. So forget that. You've got the wrong understanding. Your case number is not a big number. Okay. Hi, Simon. I submitted 9th of June. Still don't receive the email. Also sent documents. Yeah, just we have to wait, Dreckle. Seems like the bill is passed. No, it's not passed, BKN. Like I said, it's passed through one house. It's got to go through both houses, right? The House and the Senate, and it's then got to be signed into law by Biden. Of course, Biden will sign it into law. He wants this bill. I mean, the Democrats are pushing for this bill. It's his bill. It's his topic. He wants it. So he's not a problem. But passing it through the Senate, in the Senate, there's 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats at the moment, right? If they voted 50 versus 50, the vice president, Kamala Harris, would cast the vote to decide that. So effectively, it would be 51 to 50 votes, and it would pass. But that's just if it goes down party lines, right? What we really need is for some of the Republicans to come over to the Democrat side and say, yeah, it's a good law. And we need none of the Democrats to move to their side. You know, that would be better. But it's not passed yet. It's only passed one house, right? Case number, well, what's happening is it's taking time now. You know, they're taking time with processing. They haven't got to June 18th. I think, you know, I haven't seen any or many cases where DS-260s were submitted June 18th and onwards. So, you know, wait a few weeks and see what happens. Hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll start to see a bit more processing speed. I certainly hope so. Ket DV just managed to send a DS-260 on November 13th. Case number is AS6000. I'm preparing my documents. Do you think I stand? Maybe. I don't know. You haven't done anything wrong. You're late in submitting, but that's not really a problem. But will you get an interview? I don't know. I can't see the future. How about Angola? There's nothing specific about Angola. There's nothing specific about any country that affects anything, right? So it's not about Angola. It's about DV 2021. And in DV 2021, you have had 2 chances. In DV 2021, if you were a part of one of the lawsuits, good luck or go, and so on, then your chances are being kept alive by the lawsuits. If you weren't in the lawsuits, then you have basically no chance, except if this bill that's going through the House of Congress right now, if that bill is passed, which will help you later. But basically, every year the process ends on September 30th. So, you know, it doesn't matter about Angola, but, you know, DV 2021 ended on September 30th and is only being kept alive by the lawsuit for the people that signed up for the lawsuits and the possibility of this new bill. What about Ethiopia's Tigray crisis? I saw Ethiopia. these countries that just consistently go into terrible political and terrible wars, internal wars. It's so saddening. I watched with my wife a movie the other day, which was set in the times of the Sudan crisis back in the early 80s. I think it was 82, 83. And it was a story of some orphans who had been orphaned by the war, had to make a walk from Sudan, where they lived, to, I think they first tried Kenya and then later Ethiopia, and eventually made it into Ethiopia. But they walked 1,000 miles. It just horrible. In that particular story, some of the children made it to America and became refugees here. And it was an interesting story, but my wife was absolutely in tears, inconsolable for several minutes just watching this movie. So the Tigray crisis, yeah, I mean, the whole thing, honestly, I wish I could wave a magic wand and stop the hatred, but, how people do that is beyond me. But other than that, I can't comment on that from a DV lottery point of view. Other than my personal feelings about it, I don't have anything to say about that. So good luck if you're affected by that. Yili, EU 2400, it looks like, sent DS260 on 8th of July, didn't receive. Yeah, you're going to have to wait. Yeah, you're going to have to wait for a little bit longer. They're not at July submissions yet. Iranian 6,000 want to move to Canada with a student visa, supposing less workload, especially less lottery cases. You're right. Just be a little bit careful with Canada. Montreal Embassy have been a right pain in the ass over the last year or two. They have not opened when they should have opened. I don't particularly trust Montreal Embassy at the moment, but you're from Iran, so frankly, you're in trouble both ways you count it, right? So, but you could do better than Canada in terms of an embassy. Canada is a great place to be. It's a good country, but the US embassy there is not being helpful to DV lottery cases over the last couple of years. Just be aware, you need to get interviewed as fast as possible. If you're an Iranian male, you're likely to have a long period of administrative processing after the interview while they check into the background, because your government is not cooperative with the US government. And not only that, they actually would like us to all, disappear. So it takes a long time for the AP process to go through for Iranian males who would have been expected to serve military service. So, make your decision. It's your decision. Just warning you about Montreal. Can interviews be scheduled even if government appeals go notice and go? Yes, it can. Even if they appeal, which they've got a few days left to appeal, even if they appeal, yes, unless they ask for a stay, unless they stop the order, then they have to continue. However, the order for Gomez and Go has given them until the end of September of next year. So they don't have to immediately rush to start doing things. They don't have to do that. So although they don't have to file a stay to just delay things, right? So that's the problem there. Police certificate from Iran is available but not reliable. Should I bring that certificate? Read the instructions on the reciprocity page. If it should go on to say whether it's required or not. It says more than just available but not reliable, I'm sure, in the reciprocity page. Okay, and decide then. What if one does not have support with I-134 but got more than 50k with the CO refused based on PC now to the latest changes on public charge? Should we get any favor from the news from the Buyman admin? Okay, the public charge rules have not changed for 100 years. Trump tried to change them in one specific way, but the main rules about proving that you're not going to become a public charge have been the same for 100 years, at least 100 years. And so you need to prove that in one way or the other. The I-134 is a very simple way to prove it. But if you've got substantial savings, 50k is good. That would normally satisfy a SIA in most countries. I've heard of one country, a couple of interviews where the number required by the embassy to satisfy this requirement was enormous, like 125,000 for a small family. It was stupid, and there was no basis in law for that. They were just picking a number from the sky. But normally 50k would be enough at most situations. Okay. Haha, you suck. Spot on, Simon. Thanks for everything you do. Oh, you're welcome, Rosie. Is a good luck case covers only the plaintiffs? Yes, it's only the plaintiffs. It's nothing for non-plaintiffs. You read the verdict, couldn't see anything that indicates it's limited to plaintiffs. Yes, it doesn't say that it's limited to plaintiffs, but only plaintiffs are covered by it, because it's only the action was only brought on behalf of those plaintiffs. It doesn't cover anyone else. You had to be involved in that lawsuit to get benefit from it. Can you be qualified for stateless exemption if you don't have citizenship of your country, but later you get the passport too? Should I? You'd have to tell me the country you're talking about, because you're saying you don't have citizenship of your country. That's probably not true. Just because you don't have a passport doesn't mean you don't have citizenship, right? Same question. Yummy Plus. Send your documents, Yummy Plus. We've already talked about that. You've listed that several times. Malia, how are you? Have a nice weekend yourself. Hopefully it's going to be a better one. In my opinion, when are they going to start DV 2020 interviews? I don't know. I'm hoping it'll start in January, but I don't know. I already answered your question. Oh, stop repeating the question, Yashish. It's mainly your questions, Yashish. Thank you for that. I love it when people spam my feed here. It makes me happy. What kind of changes can you do in the DS260 when you get an interview scheduled? Basically none. When you get scheduled for an interview, you shouldn't be asking to open your DS260. You can in some exceptional cases, but they won't want to. The KCC will reply and say, do that with the embassy. So if you need to make any changes, make them as early as possible. Don't try and be clever saying, I'm not going to open my DS260 because it will delay my case. That's unlikely. The delay is unlikely to happen. But problems later because you've got mistakes in your DS260, that's likely to happen, right? So you're much better off to open your DS260 and correct it as soon as possible. AS10, is that a high case number? Nope. What will happen to JM decision if bill gets passed through Senate? What are the odds for the bill to get passed? Judge Mehta's decision and the visas reserved for the 9,095 and for the 2021 cases, that will continue because until more visas are available through the bill, which we don't know when that will be, Judge Mehta's decision will stand. It won't be mooted out, right? Simply by this rule, right? So, it's not going to change it. I'm just looking at Clan Chief. Clan Chief, you didn't say the date. Already told that. Thanks, BJ. Yeah, positive vibes to you too. Yes, I'm great today. Thank you. Okay. TQ. Oh, okay. So this is a good one to answer. So your SA 2000. So you got DR September 21st. You got DQ'd October 29th. With a tiered scheme gone, should I expect VB activity speeding as well as my interview date earlier than it would have been with the tier 4 scheme? No. You still have to wait until your case number is current. It won't be current for some time because of your case number, right? You're in South America. and you got SA 2000. So you still have to wait for that. But when you become current, because you're documentarily qualified, you can reasonably expect that your embassy should have enough capacity now without the tier 4 that you should get an interview in that first month when you become current. There's a good chance of that now, particularly as you got DQ'd quite early. Okay, so it won't be earlier than your current date, but it'll be, once you're current, you're pretty confident you'll get an interview. Whereas in 2021, under the tiered prioritization scheme, there were people who became current and still didn't get an interview, and they were documentarily qualified because there were more people waiting for an interview at a given embassy than that embassy had in terms of capacity, right? So that won't be the case for you now. So that's your advantage. Can my past addresses have overlap? I went to university on holidays. Don't give every address for every holiday, and even the university stay. Your home address is probably still which you considered your home address, maybe with family or whatever. You don't need to give all of the addresses every time you took a holiday. You don't need to do that. Just use some common sense about that. I'm missing a document. Okay, we already talked about that. Does your video include cases out of plain stiff, judgmental, and good luck? I'm out of this to vote. My video. Nothing to do with my video, but if you're not a plaintiff on the good luck or go cases in DV 2021, then those cases don't cover you, if that's what you mean. We're just celebrating a win against tiered prioritization has been rescinded. Our wish is that you take KCC offer to make things right. Oh dear. The offer to fix KCC was a government program years ago. And I didn't do it at the time. This was a number of years ago, probably about, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago or something. And at the time, there's no way they could afford me. They paid $20 an hour, to their staff at KCC. I couldn't afford to work for that. My bills cost more than that. So that's why I didn't do it. Okay, so Clan Chief, you're repeating. You sent docs 3 times, we've not received it. Yep. So you said the same thing, Clan Chief. Go check your documents. Make sure you're sending them correctly. Okay. It does sound like you're making a mistake with the documents. Just be very careful. You're sending the documents correctly, and the subject line is correct. Okay. 2020 we talked about. Clarification for Egypt, Cairo with love. I want to go and see Cairo sometime. Look at that photo. I want to see Cairo sometime. That would be awesome. You have 2 Instagram accounts, but in the DS you only indicated 1 account due to the fact that the other one is for business purpose. Will it affect you? No. You should have been more honest, but it won't affect you. Okay, this is a good question. Okay, last question then. I'll maybe just scan through after this just to make sure there's no other interesting questions. This one's a good one. What's the minimum education requirement for DV? Haven't talked about this with all the lawsuit things. Haven't talked about this for some time. The minimum education standard is supposed to be equivalent to an 18-year-old American kid that goes through college, what they call, or goes to college rather, what they call college here, which is university. So at age 18, after roughly 12 years of education, that's a normal age for an American child to then go on to university, or as they call it here, college. It's high school graduation. Now, I graduated from high school when I was a kid at 16 years old because the name of the school was high school, and then I went to college from 16 to 18. That level of college is not the same college education as America. That level of high school education is not the same as America. The point is, it's the point at which you can enter a normal university for a bachelor's degree, a 3 or 4 year bachelor's degree, but it's the entry point of college or university, which in most countries should be around about 17 or 18 years old. roughly. So you're unlikely to be qualified if you're 15 or 16 and you went through high school. You should have been in formal education. It's not the number of years. It doesn't matter if it's 12 years. They say 12 years, but it's not 12 years that's important. It's the level of education that's important. Okay, that's the minimum education required. Okay, quick scan through. Just see if there's anything else real interesting there. No, can't spot any other questions that are dissimilar to the ones we've had before. Lots of repeated questions, really. Okay, everybody. Thanks for your time this morning. We're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for your time. Just to be clear again, just to repeat, I'm pleased about the Tier 4 prioritization being removed. I'm pleased we won't have to have that lawsuit. I'm not convinced that things are just going to get better overnight, but they should be getting better within a few weeks or a couple of months. And hopefully things will go fast. But I don't think things are suddenly going to go wonderfully. I just don't think that's going to happen. So, I think we're going to need other types of lawsuits later on personally, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.